Tuesday. Now, today, Monday, talks did restart or resume in Geneva over the crisis in Syria. And President Putin said at his press conference today that he's instructed his foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, to intensify Russia's role in those peace talks.
Now, speaking of that, what will Russia's presence be like? What's the role?
Well, they still have a military presence in the country. They still have a base in Latakia that's significant, and they say they'll keep personnel there to enforce the ceasefire agreement that was reached in Geneva. And this will likely include conducting strikes against the self-proclaimed Islamic State and the al-Qaeda-affiliated al-Nusra Front. Both groups were excluded from that ceasefire negotiation reached just a few weeks ago.
And now, how do you expect Washington to react to this news? Were they looped in, I would hope?
Well, I got a little perspective on that today. I actually had a chance to speak to the former ambassador to Morocco under the Clinton administration, Mark Ginsburg. He's also a White House advisor on the Middle East. So I asked him, you know, if you were advising the Obama administration on this news, how would you respond? And I think we can listen to what he had to say.
I think it's important that it shows that perhaps there is a role now for more moderate forces to be able to help take control over the territories that had been more or less left in no man's land, and so that the humanitarian support that is necessary to be brought in is able to be brought in by organizations in order to feed Syrians desperate for humanitarian relief. I think the Washington should welcome Mr. Putin's decisions to reduce the number of Russian troops inside Syria. I think Secretary Kerry has done a great job insofar as cobbling together the elements of what essentially is a durable ceasefire with his counterpart, Foreign Minister Lavrov. It's clear that both the Russian government and the United States government had a common objective here, and that is to try to bring some humanitarian relief to the terrible crisis that has been going on inside Syria.
All right, certainly some interesting insights out of Mark Ginsburg, right? So I guess it's a wait and see moment for us. Thank you for keeping an eye on that. That was RT correspondent Anya Parampil. In what comes as a sudden change in ongoing hostilities there in Syria, the news of the Russian troop withdrawal comes as a big surprise to many. To better understand how these major developments and what they mean for the peace process and for regional stability, we're going to be joined now by Michael Maloof, a writer and former senior security policy analyst in the office of the Secretary of Defense. Mr. Maloof, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure.
Russia's withdrawal seems sudden and comes to surprise to, I think, a lot of people, even in the newsroom here. But President Putin has said, quote, with the participation of the Russian military, the Syrian armed forces and patriotic Syrian forces have been able to achieve a fundamental turnaround in the fight against international terrorism and have taken the initiative in almost all respects. Yeah. Does that mean that Russia's goal of neutralizing ISIS and securing President Assad's position have been achieved?
No, not necessarily. I think it was clear that that Russia's participation was not going to be a permanent thing. A nearly 6-month period of time seemed reasonable to try to help the Assad government to regain control over its area and get rid of many of the jihadi Salafists that were threatening Damascus, frankly. And so I think that this was a big shot in the arm. I think it gives, however, a de facto recognition, if you will, of a partition of Syria. Number one, it does secure the western portion for Assad. The northern part goes for the Kurds. It really doesn't do all that much to take out ISIS in the eastern portion. And I was hoping that perhaps President Putin might then start focusing more on Raqqa and those areas out there. Now, the fact that he's going to have forces there is going to be significant.
Now, you brought up the eastern portion. What about the western side? What effect will the Russian withdrawal have on Turkey's increasing belligerence towards Syria?
Well, that's going to be another problem. Allegedly, Saudi Arabia also sending in 150,000 troops to stage in Turkey. Now, if they decide to march into Syria, I think all bets are off. I think then Moscow is going to have to rethink its strategy. I think clearly that this was a good tactical move in terms of trying to get the peace process underway, but it's an incremental step. And if it looks like things that Turkey and even Saudi Arabia are going to take advantage of that, and ultimately they want to oust Assad, then all bets are off. I think then you're going to see Moscow reconsidering. And the fact that Moscow is retaining its bases, I think, is significant, and probably will have a number of offshore capabilities just in case Turkey and Saudi Arabia try to take advantage of this lull.
Michael Maloof, former senior security policy analyst at the Pentagon, thank you for your expertise, sir.
Thank you.